The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team had a two-game series against UMass Amherst. How did they fare? The Quinnipiac women's rugby team are officially back-to-back-to-back NIRA champions. Tayler Schussler is live in studio, and we all have our final roars of the night. Stay with us. Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Bobcat Breakdown. I am joined by Jonathan Banks and Kyle Levasseur. Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great tonight. It's just a pleasure to be here with Kyle and Tayler. Thanks for joining us at the desk. It's really exciting to have you here.
Yeah, it was a great Thanksgiving break. Got to see Tayler and the team in the NIRA National Championship game. Men's ice hockey also played Yale. Big weekend for Quinnipiac sports.
We have a special guest for the beginning of the show from the Quinnipiac women's rugby team, Tayler Schussler. Thanks for joining us, Tayler.
Thanks for having me, guys.
The Quinnipiac Bobcats took down the Dartmouth Big Green last weekend, 29-20 in the championship game. Winning the championship 3 years in a row is something that is unheard of at many colleges, but for the rugby team, it was just another game. Tayler, did you and your team ever doubt that you were going to come back in the championship game?
No, I think that was something that a lot of our families and our fans talked about after the semifinal and the final game, was that even when we were down, we never felt like the chips were stacked against us, and we always felt like we had a lot of control in the game. And I think that our opponents, both Central Washington and Dartmouth, kind of let us take that control. And even like I said, when we were down eventually by 10 points at one point, when we were in the try zone and we had just gotten scored on, everyone just looked up at each other and was like, "It's fine. We are okay, and we know what to do. We know what we have to fix." And we went out there and we did it together. So. We never doubted for a second that there was a chance that someone's going to come in and beat us at home. So it was a good weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree, Taylor. I mean, I've been saying it all season long. Forget about the 2 losses in the regular season. You guys were the favorites going into the playoffs because of your experience. And I also looked back to your games against Penn State and your win against Central Washington in the regular season, and then in that semifinals when you guys came back. And I think it comes down to conditioning at the end of games. That's what your head coach, Becky Carlson, said. Your conditioning coach just does an excellent job with you guys, and maybe you could speak a little more to that. But the end of your games, you guys just seem to dominate, whether it's at the end of the Central Washington game where you guys are down in your defensive end, not allowing them to score or coming back. But what is it about that conditioning that really sets you guys apart?
So Coach Webster is our strength and conditioning coach here, and her and Coach Meg do a stellar job in the weight room, and our ATs have a lot to do with it too. So our athletic trainers and all of us are always in that room, doing pre-treatment, rolling out, stretching all the time, and then when we hit practice really hard, whether we're lifting at 5 a.m. that day or if we didn't have lift, everything that we do, every drill that we do is designed with some type of purpose. So whether it's to get conditioning in short sprints, catching kicks and kicking back, or if we're running penalty plays or anything like that. So I think the conditioning is something that's interesting because when I first got here, it wasn't really built in, and we would just do, suicides up and down the field, like 110s is what we call them. And eventually they kind of got into it to where they built it in, and it's awesome now because the whole team does it together and you don't even feel it anymore.
Yeah, and Taylor, that's like the mindset that we're talking about. We talk about the culture of this rugby team. That's why, I just thought personally that there's definitely a chance you guys were going to come back. You're not going to lose twice to the same team. You guys are known from coming behind, scoring in bunches. You're down by 15. You're down 12-7 against Central Washington. And as you said, finishing every drill, the culture of the team, just knowing when to fight back and how to fight hard. That's just why I thought you guys were never going to lose that game in the championship.
Thanks for that confidence.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Kyle, you have been around this team all season as the beat reporter. How disappointing is the lack of support from our school?
Well, here's the thing about the support. There's 2 different groups. You have the diehard fans that you saw them in the playoffs. Those bleachers were completely packed for that national championship game. It's the friends and family that make the trip out here to Hamden to see them. And it's also the men's club team. You can't forget them. They were at every playoff game, and they show so much support for this team. But it's really a shame, and truly, it's an embarrassment that administration is not there for the 3rd national championship game in a row. And I'm sorry, but I know President John Leahy traveled to the Frozen Four in Tampa for the men's ice hockey national championship. He went to the Sweet 16 for women's basketball a season ago. He was at the ribbon cutting ceremony. It wasn't even a game for the new fields for field hockey, lacrosse, and soccer. And he's at almost every hockey and basketball game, and that's great. But where is he for rugby? I mean, this team has just been so dominant. They're clearly the best team on campus. There was no ribbon cutting ceremony for their new field, nothing for any of the 3 playoff games at home. I'm disgusted that there's just no support for this team. I'm sure you feel the same way, Taylor, but it has to change in my mind.
Taylor, do you want to go first? Do you want me to take this one?
I think that you should take this one first.
All right, I'll go first. So this is a debate show, and we're supposed to talk about, Kyle and I are supposed to disagree a little, but I 100% agree with Kyle right now. And I'm going to tell you why, because we had Q30 coverage the whole time. Kyle, you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there all over Thanksgiving break.
And he's there because he's a beat reporter for this team. It's his job to be there. It's his beat. He's just his job. He's supposed to be there. So honestly, it actually blows my mind that no one was there. So I'm just a regular member of Q30 in terms of rugby. I go to the home games, check out the NIR website, I go on Twitter. I understand the basics of the sport from covering the team this year. It's not my beat. I'm a men's ice hockey beat reporter, so those are the games I go to, and those are the games I focus on. One thing I want to focus on is Dylan Fearon wrote a final earlier in the year on Bobcat Breakdown, and it was beautifully written. It was well written, and it talked about the fact that how can we blame the fans when school leaders won't even show up? Because the athletic department built beautiful, pristine new stadiums, the soccer complex, field hockey. They're just absolutely beautiful. And Dylan was calling for the fans. Why weren't the fans showing up to these beautiful stadiums? But how can the school embody this sentiment of the fans not showing up when Leahy isn't showing up? It just boggles my mind. It's like Roger Goodell not showing up for the Super Bowl. Taylor, tell me what you think.
I think that these are all really good points. I think the difference is that eventually, because we've been dealing with it, at least the rugby team, and I think every team on campus has really dealt with it at some point, the kind of feeling of it, at least a lack of support. Not that they don't support us in the academic department, not that they don't support us when we really need them in athletic training ways or anything like that, but just the lack of visible support, especially when, for us, the rugby team didn't have a single home game last year because we didn't have a pitch, so we traveled for every single game. And I think Sarah Frazier was the only one who traveled to West Point. It's only 2 hours from here for our national tournament last year. And to have, I think they showed up to a few games here or there or for a little bit at a time, but to kind of not have, especially any of the President Leahy's attention after 3 years of doing this, and when we had that whole debacle kind of back and forth with him a couple years ago when we first won, it's just the culture of the school. And I think that when you look at it and how much the teams try to give back to the campus and how much a lot of the teams understand that as many of the fans and people that go to the school try to give back to us, if it's not coming from the top down, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and just quickly, and I'm glad you brought up the past incidents because it's not like it's new. It's been here before, and the people that are close with the team and work for the team, they do a great job, and the fans are always there that love the team, but there just needs to be more support from the higher-ups.
Yeah, and one more question, Taylor. How many times you won the national championship?
3.
You've won it 3 times, and now we're talking about no fan and no support from the higher-ups at Quinnipiac University instead of the fact that this team played so well for 3 years in a row.
Taylor, thank you so much for joining us tonight. When we come back, we will discuss the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team and how this season is looking so far. 60 seconds, and we will be right back.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. QCash is accepted.
now that's a sandwich.
This is Sports Pause.
Are you concerned with the 0-2 start to this game?
Right here, top of the circle, again, rips it past the Jasper's goalie.
What will breaking the record mean for the program himself? I mean, 138 wins.
There's the tough shot. What a nice play by Mikey Dixon.
He's good in transition. Just a really dynamic scorer he can create for himself.
And now, Emma, it's time for the top 5 plays of the week.
Welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us. The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team has had 4 games since most of the students left for Thanksgiving break. Quinnipiac defeated Yale in front of a sold-out crowd in Brown last weekend. The Bobcats then visited the UMass Minutemen this past weekend in a 2-game series, which did not turn out the way Quinnipiac expected it to. Kyle, we're going to start with you on this one. Was the Yale and Brown games flukes for this team?
Yeah, I think they were clearly flukes when you look at the rest of how the season is going and you really take a deep dive into the statistics. I mean, Andrew Shortridge really just stole that series for them. He played out of his mind. It was the first back-to-back shutout since 2015. He played excellent, and we always know how Quinnipiac steps their game up against Yale. They haven't lost to them since the 2012-13 national championship. So we always know that tends to be a win for them. But for me, I look at the rest of the season, who's consistently scoring for them. And you look at the top teams in the conference, they have players that are consistently scoring for them. Clarkson has Sheldon Rumpal, who has 11 goals this season. That's part of the reason they're tied for first in the pairwise in the country. You have Colgate's Bobby McMahon. He has 9 goals this season. Union's Anthony Rinaldi has 8 goals. For Quinnipiac, they don't have anyone that has more than 5 goals this year so far. It's frightening. Someone needs to step up and consistently score. If there was someone doing that, it wouldn't be as much of a fluke. But I'd have to say, an 8-0 series, it's got to be a fluke for Quinnipiac.
Yeah, Kyle, I definitely see your point when you talk about the lack of goal scoring, how they have no one to point to. But I'm actually going to go on the other side here, and I'm going to say that it's not a fluke. So I know it's hard to say after a disappointing first half of the season, and disappointment would be an understatement right now for this hockey team. But this Yale Brown weekend, it's a sign of what's to come. Yeah, they lost to UMass Amherst, right? Hockey East, so it's not even the conference. And they didn't look good, so let's throw that out.
So what's to come? If it's
okay, just hear me out.
This is their worst start in 13 years.
I
just want to point out.
But hear me out.
So, and they just got swept against a mediocre UMass team.
Right.
So how is it a sign for things to come?
No, I understand that. But you say mediocre. UMass is 26 in the pairwise, which I know by no means is not top 16. But
yeah, the top 16 make the national tournament.
I understand.
They were 5 and 6 going into the weekend.
Saying.
But go on.
Right.
I'll let you talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So they beat Princeton 6-2 today, right? We're talking about assumptions here. Dartmouth is 59th in the pairwise. Yeah, that obviously does not support my point. I know this doesn't make Dartmouth a tough opponent this weekend, but I mean, Harvard's a team that's stacked with talent, also not ranked up in the pairwise. But here, let's not make assumptions anymore to show that this is not a fluke. So let's take a look at the ECA standings right now before. Quinnipiac has 4 points coming into this game. Dartmouth is 4. Harvard is 4. Yale has 6. Brown is 6. So right now, but excluding Quinnipiac beat Princeton 6-2 tonight, but excluding that fact, so before the game, this is when I got my information. Well, Princeton had 5 points, so Yale beat a team Quinnipiac, beat a team that had more points than them. That's 3 times. 3 times. They had points more than them. So don't look at the paper, look at these numbers. We all assumed Quinnipiac would be a top 5 team in this conference. We didn't assume Colton Point would stand on his head for Colgate and lead them to a 4-1-1 conference record. And we did not assume Cornell would be the last undefeated team in college hockey. So, I mean, we can go on, is this a fluke, is it not? We can talk about our mid-preseason projections and all this other gibberish. But, I mean, this is a perfect weekend for Quinnipiac to prove that it's not a fluke. And they started that by beating Princeton 6-2 today.
Jonathan.
Kyle.
It was a 2-game home series where they needed 2 wins after starting conference play 0-4. You don't think they stepped their game up a little more than usual, especially against their rival Yale at home? I think they did. I don't think this was a regular series. I expect them to sweep again later on in the series. They have a weekend series against Arizona State and Maine. Both of those should be sweeps.
Should be.
They should be. But, I mean, I don't really see any other weekend sweeps other than that, and that's why I consider it a fluke.
I mean, this college hockey season has kind of been a whirlwind to say the least. But, I mean, you say should be sweeps? But really, Quinnipiac, we thought they were going to beat Colgate on November 4th. We thought they were going to contest with Cornell on November 3rd, just blown out of the water both times. So we'll see what happens as the season progresses.
All right, Jonathan, who is to blame for giving up 10 goals in 2 games against UMass, which is just an average team?
See, average team, but go ahead.
Average team. Hey, you got me there. And I'm going to, first I want to point out what Kyle said about Andrew Shortridge. Andrew Shortridge, saying he's outstanding was an understatement. Last week he was the ECAC goaltender of the week. First goalie to post back-to-back shutouts in a weekend series this season in college hockey. He was also won an NCAA hockey 3 stars of the week, so that's clearly not the issue. I'm going with the defense because we praise this defense on paper coming into the season, but they've been leaking goals left and right, back and forth. Obviously, as we just mentioned, 10 goals in 2 games against UMass. Throughout the first 4 games in November in the ECAC, they were outscored 15-6, which led to 4 straight losses in the conference, which is something that has never happened since they joined in 2005. And at the beginning of the season, we were talking about this team lacked offensive firepower. They couldn't replace Travis St. Dennis, Devon Taves, all of those types of players that they haven't replaced 2 years ago. Alice Whalen scored 4 goals in 5 games and didn't score from 7 games since his goal against Northeastern. He scored tonight, but it's the defense. It's got to be the defense.
Well, the defense is interesting because that was supposed to be their strong suit
Right.
going into the season, and they let up way too many goals against RPI and teams like that, which we didn't expect. But for me, it's the senior class because they're the ones that have been there, and once they give up a few goals, they should be the ones to really take the reign of the team and make sure that they don't let any more goals up. I was talking to head coach Rand Pecknell just a few days ago, and he was saying he doesn't really know who that core nucleus of leaders is right now. And it's still a little bit early on in the season. He's still figuring it out. But in past years, they've known who that is. And it's getting a little too late for me to say that he doesn't know who it is.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, Chase Prisky is a great leader, but he's also a
absolutely.
junior captain, right? Junior captain. Where are the seniors? Where's the nucleus that's going to step up? Because no team is going to win without leaders.
Time flies on this show when you have these two on the desk. When we come back, we will each give our final roars. Be back in 1 minute. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
The Quinnipiac Bobcats had a very busy week while most of students spent their week off at home. Athletics were in full swing, and now we have our final roars of the night. Jonathan, we're going to start with you.
Thanks, Emma. Being a national champion in big name coup for the Quinnipiac men's basketball team, Baker Dunleavy was absolutely worth the hype when he signed on to coach the Bobcats. But personally, I think the hype around Dunleavy has masked some serious problems with this basketball team. Yeah, Dunleavy does not have the players he personally recruited yet, but let's face the reality of the situation. This team has dropped 5 straight contests. Let's talk about their last game against Maine. Cam Young was a dominant force in the Paradise Jam. He scored 26 points against both Colorado and Liberty. Isaiah Washington is a graduate student transfer from Penn State who hadn't played less than 30 minutes before the game against Maine. And Rich Kelly, the freshman stud starting point guard, averaged a tad over 10 points a game so far this season. In their last tilt against Maine, these 3 players were 5 for 33 from the field. I'm by no means a math major, but that's got to be around 15% from the floor for 3 starters. Shays Daniels is a good MAC-level player, but not good enough to carry a team to victory on his back. Young, Washington, and Rich Kelly have to be better. They just have to be better if Quinnipiac wants to win games, especially as MAC competition starts in a short month.
The Quinnipiac field hockey team has started to announce next year's incoming class of Bobcats, and it's a good one. After 2 solid first years in the Big East Conference, head coach Becca Main is now competing hard in the recruiting game. 2 recruits, Michaela Duggan and Michaela Adams, are ranked in Max Field Hockey's top 100 players in the class of 2018. Both Duggan and Adams are midfielders and should expect to make an immediate impact as Dana Barlow, Selena Reichert, and Montana Fleming are graduating. Obviously, the new field hockey facility has already made an impact with recruiting, as Quinnipiac is now claiming recruits over Big East foes like Liberty, Temple, and Georgetown. Bobcat fans should be excited for the future of the Quinnipiac field hockey team.
The Quinnipiac women's basketball team has started off the season in full swing against top 25 ranked schools. The record for the Bobcats, which is 1-3, does not speak for their squad because they are a very strong, skilled team. Having 3 games against 3 Power 5 conference teams is not the normal start to a MAC women's basketball team. The team does not start conference play until the end of December, so they have more than enough time to prove who they really are. Revealing the Sweet 16 banner, Lender Court this past week put the Bobcats up in a positive way. Practicing and seeing that during games will give off a new vibe for Coach Fabry's team. Well, that's all the time we have tonight for Bobcat Breakdown. Be sure to tune in for the last show of the semester next week, same time, same place. Thanks so much for watching. For more information, check out all of our content at theqbsn.com and at q30television.com. Also, follow us on Twitter at QBSN and at Q30Sports. For Kyle Levasseur, Jonathan Banks, our production staff, and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Emma Carman. Have a good night.